yes, a lot of people would say that, yes, but we've been speaking for a long time. There needs to be action. There needs to be action. Fair enough. Yes, there does need to be action.
Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of Breaking the Silence, and I am super excited. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Like, it's another week, a new topic, and just to kind of give a little bit of context, you know, we've actually been doing live streaming conversations like this on Facebook. We started in 2020, kind of like the middle of 2020, and it felt right to bring it to YouTube.
Yeah.
And we're here, we're present. We're going to be talking about some really heavy topics, things that people don't particularly might not want to talk about, but we're bringing it here. We're bringing it to the table. And I mean, come on, Spencer, like, give us some enlightenment, some of the things that we're going to be talking about.
Oh, there's a lot to choose from. So we're going to be talking about managing of money, social perceptions, lots of things to do with young people and how young people can really build themselves up. And overall, just really talking about the whole mental state of people generally and how we can all help to make the world that we live in a better place.
Just so many topics, and you know, we're here to have casual conversations and a great time, and that leads us to today's topic, which honestly has been on the tongues of so many people, especially right now. And I think one thing about this, you know, this lockdown, this pandemic that we're, you know, this season that we're in right now, is that a lot of issues have been heightened. And so when it comes to women's rights, women's safety, the importance of women's safety, and actually talking about that from both perspectives, I think a lot of people either beat around the bush or are too afraid to talk about it. And I think in the UK we also have this culture where, you know, we're just very sophisticated about certain topics. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of stuff that's behind closed doors we would have conversations about. Behind closed doors we'll have a lot of opinions towards, but then in the public eye we don't talk about it whatsoever. It's almost as if there's a hidden rule to never talk about something, or we're too afraid as to how people may perceive us for certain views that we may hold.
Exactly. I mean, okay, just sort of taking the elephant out of the room, you know, over the last couple of weeks, considering that this month of March is supposed to celebrate women with, you know, International Women's Day, and I even learnt that, in fact, the entire month of March is to celebrate women, and there's a Women's Week in March as well. But given that, look at the contradiction with all the issues that have arisen since the first day of this month up until now, with, you know, women being killed, women being abused, harassed, you know, the list goes on, and having to fight for our own safety. Like, why isn't this spoken about like a lot more? Like, I think there's a growing issue in people's level of understanding as well. Like, we can always fight for equal rights between men and women, but it's the fact that why is it that women have to go an extra mile just to ensure that they feel safe? Like, from your perspective, like, how do you see some of these issues that are constantly growing? Like, how does that make you feel when you hear about it on the news?
First answer is, it's not nice to hear these things. Yeah, it's not nice to hear these things. To think that there is always the message portrayed to that how we're living in a world where everything is equal, how we're living in a world where things are supposed to be great, happiness is supposed to be there, to then see certain situations arise relating to the state of women, their safety, their rights, and them having a voice in certain situations, is very disheartening.
Yeah.
And I think it is a truth that a lot of us know, but we still refuse to voice it. We still refuse to sort of stand up against it and actually fight and actually say, no, this is wrong. We can't be doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
I totally agree. And it's kind of like, I know one thing for sure for me on sort of my perspective of things, like going out on a daily basis, like you want to go to the shop or you're going to work, as in post or pre-pandemic, you just want to be normal. Like it's a scary feeling. Like going out, like I step out of my house and I even want to go for a walk in the park, like I don't even do that as often as I should. And that's not because, okay, most times it might be due to laziness, but it's but it's also because you just don't even know what's gonna happen. Like I remember walking in the park one time and it was probably around evening, and obviously during winter it gets darker quicker, right? And it was getting to around 5 p.m. and I was like, oh my goodness, I've completely forgotten it's getting dark. And all of a sudden this fear overwhelmed me, because I was like, I don't know who's creeping up behind me, I don't know who's in front of me, there's some people sitting around, I don't even trust that is suspect. And you know, that happens to so many women on a daily basis. But I've been in conversations with people who feel like, well, you know, it's not just women. Like what do you think when people say that?
More time, okay. I think when it comes to situations as to where now there may have been a certain attack on a gender type, and then through discussions it then gets sort of generalized to then fit and say that, well, no, it's not just women, but men have it also. I think that is a tactic that is used by many to sort of say that, okay, I understand what you're saying, but you can't just be the way you are for your own personal preferences. Don't forget, it also happens over here too. You know, and I think it's a tactic for us to really be able to sort of deflect and neglect the fact that this is happening to a certain type. It's same like things with Black Lives Matter. You know, everyone was saying, okay, but Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter. You know what I'm saying? So it's sort of trying to degrade the fact that you're trying to just fight for black people in a sense, but we got to look at the board. So I think we need to have a better form of awareness, and we actually need to take this on board in the fact that, okay, it is happening a lot to our women and it shouldn't be. And if, in a sense, if you look at it biologically, as men we should be protecting our women as well. As men we should be protecting our women. So even if the masses of men are saying these type of things, we shouldn't in a way. But then you do also see some other women as well that have very masculine energies actually come out and say stuff like that as well, which I think we just need to be really better when it comes to awareness and how we actually perceive things.
I totally agree. And you know, even when it comes to like looking at that as an issue within itself, you know, some would say, well, it's not all men that are doing this to women, which granted that is a statement of fact, but it's not taking away from the fact that it still happens to women. Like you know, you can't just go out because you're going to work and then not expect to come home just because someone thought they're going to have a field day today. Like you know, I think looking at it from that perspective as well, we understand that all men's lives matter, and like men go through these issues as well, and it's not safe for anyone, period. But I don't think that we should take away from that fact that women don't feel safe. I mean, I even came across an article the other day which was talking about how a mayoral candidate, you know, one of his pledges is to pay, I think, something like £2.1 million to install CCTVs around like London. And it's like, okay, so a CCTV is going to make me feel safe now? It's like,
I don't know.
I mean, granted, sure, there should be more CCTVs around, but CCTVs are only there to record, right? So you're only going to record the proof that something happened to this person. You haven't protected them. You know, and it's like, what kind of tactic is that, like, I think, you know, you're right in saying that we really do need to think a lot more. Like, I think there's just not a lot of thought being put behind so many issues, not just women's safety, just so many issues, and we kind of downplay a lot of things. And again, when I go back to saying how in the UK we're very sophisticated about certain issues, like we kind of downplay it all and be like, you know, we have to do things the proper way, the prim and proper way, and it's like, all right, cool, but then it's like, when people's lives are at stake, I'll give you another example actually, and this really broke my heart the other day. I'm not necessarily tied to women, but in kind of when it comes to crime in general. Say for example, a young person has been stabbed, right, and they've been left on the road and they've been found. Say you are that individual, for example, and you're still breathing, but you have, you know, a sufficient amount of wounds. You know, it's been advised that rather than when you call the police, don't tell them that you've been stabbed or you've been shot. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that's what's happened to you? He said, because the ambulance won't come. They won't send for the ambulance. They'll send for the police, because the police will get there, assess the situation. Then is it safe? Then we call for the ambulance. But by the time that happens, the person would have died or bled to death. And it's like, why is it that we have to? And then, you know, and this individual said, you know, if you do call, just say that you've had a heart attack. Like, why should we dance around, you know, an issue in order to get help? Like, for women, in these instances, they say, hold your keys in your hands, tuck your hair in your coat, and, you know, and you won't be, you know, assaulted or whatever when you're walking home. But why should women have to go through all those lengths just to stay safe? Like, I don't think we're here to bring a solution or the solution, but I think it's just ensuring that we are talking about these things, and that it's okay for both women and men to talk about these issues, because the more and more we talk about it to find solutions, the closer we are to bridging that gap that women aren't feeling safe. And I think, you know, I've been in so many conversations since the beginning of this month, where, you know, we're celebrating International Women's Day on a Monday. There's been so much violent crime towards women Monday to Saturday, and then Sunday we celebrate Mother's Day, and it's like the contradiction in that alone, like, it's crazy. And what are we telling the younger generation? What are we telling the next generation? That, do you find yourself in conversations that you're having these with people that you know?
I've had a few conversations with people about this, and I think from the masses that I have spoken to, I think a lot of the conversation has really, as an example for it, a lot of the conversation has really been taken as well from like a media perspective. So if we look at examples as to the recent people who have gone missing recently, so we had Sarah, and then we also had Blessing as well, and just the narrative of how those two were played out before. I think following discussions that I've had with people as well, their mindsets were really amongst the whole media perception. And I think that plays a lot of part as to how we actually think and make judgments and react to certain aspects like this.
I think a lot of people are upset about that. I think even just going through my own social media, you'd see people going, well, what about Blessing? Like, she went missing and then she was found on a beach, and it was almost like case open, case closed. But, you know, with this situation with Sarah, which is honestly so unfortunate from a perspective of being a woman, like, that shouldn't have even happened at all. You know, she was on the phone to her family before it happened. But then, you know, how the media have kind of spun it into this whole whirlwind where you have the entire nation kind of going out to search for Sarah, which should happen in all cases. But for me personally, like, it highlighted the fact that, I don't know if it's the fact that the media chooses favoritism, and then you have talks about it from a racist perspective, or do you start pointing fingers at the media, calling them racist? But it's like, we're going to be in that endless cycle of conversation. But the truth is, on a daily basis, so many women and men alike go missing, and they don't even have the light of day in the media, let alone people's social media feeds. You know, and it's like, are we going to continue in this cycle?
I think we will continue in this cycle until there's a real shift, a real sense of accountability from the people in the positions that actually make these decisions.
Yeah.
And I think as well there will be a lot of change once people in the community really get better in terms of their understanding. But I think for myself, and this is just personally, when I was weighing up both scenarios, both stories, just the way as to how the media had even portrayed, the missing of Sarah, compared it to Blessing, and it's like the way they compare it is totally different. Totally different. The media coverage was just so different. Yeah, you've got this, and this goes on with a lot of things that we see in the media. It plays a thing. So I think in terms of this, you could play a sense of that, although women as a whole, that there are slight differences when you also factor in race as well. I think it's a lot to say that black women as well in lots of different are not protected at all.
Yeah.
Black women are not protected.
No, they're not.
Let's be real.
Let's be honest.
They're not. Like, they're actually not at all. Whereas I still think that the white woman still has the favour of government on their side.
Yeah, they
the
have
media
that
the media on their side and everything like that. When does it change? I don't know.
It's like, you know what, this is such a heavy topic. Like, even as we talk about it, like, my mind goes into different dimensions as to how all of this could have, played differently. And even if you date it back in time, like, this has always been an issue. It's heartbreaking to know that where you say black people have to work twice as hard in order to get opportunities, the same can be said for women, in that they have to work twice as hard for opportunities, but also twice as hard to keep safe. And then you then have to teach your children, your daughter, right, don't walk down that alley. But what you're teaching your daughter is not what you're teaching your son. And like, it's very, like, it's really deep, I think. And until we get to a point in our life, and I personally think it's not going to be in our generation, but I pray for the future generations that you get to a point that, not to say that you can walk around willy-nilly at 1 a.m. in the morning, but the fact that you don't have to constantly look over your shoulders. Like, I don't even listen to music when I'm walking down the street anymore because of how unsafe it could be.
Accountability does need to be taken from men
100%.
in a sense, because in a sense we have created an environment which is no longer safe, deemed safe, and especially for our women. There was times as to where you could go to a party and you can go home or stuff like that, but the level of scaredness that you had for yourself wasn't as great as you have today. Now it's gone worse, much worse. And as well, I think area plays a massive part as to where locality as to where you are. For instance, somewhere like South London, South
the
London.
ends.
It's rough, it's difficult, it's scary at times. You don't know what's gonna happen. There's a lot of gang violence here, gang violence there. You got a lot of people that do go missing, a lot of kidnappings and stuff like that. A lot of stabbings and everything like that. It can happen to anyone. True, and it can happen
anywhere. Because even Sarah, like, she was in probably the part of the affluent area of the area that she was walking in, like in South London. I mean, there are worse areas than where she was when she was taken. And it's just like, you can't really pinpoint the good and the bad. Like, and then she was found in Kent. I even learned today that there's like an app where you can record if there's been a violent act that's happened towards someone, and then that it's happened nearby you. But it's just like, it could happen in the spot where you're standing in that very minute. Like, I don't know if that's even going to protect a lot of people just because you can like skip to the next road. It's a scary world out there.
So looking at it from a perspective of because it is Women's Month. We are focusing on women here. And what would be some things that you would also tell to young women, not just black but of all races, to sort of incorporate in order for them to just feel a little bit more satisfied and a little bit more safe when they are out and about, maybe at late times or just in general? What would be some things?
Do you know what? I don't have an answer to that right now, because I don't think there is one. Like, I'm still trying to find it out for myself. Like, how do I keep myself safe, let alone advise someone else? You can't say to a woman, well, don't leave the house after 6 so that you can keep safe. I mean, I know back in the 70s and the 80s, that was a thing. But it's like, well, then you're just taking away basic human right of living and breathing and feeling safe. So it's kind of like, I can't tell you, make sure you hold your keys and tuck your hair in your coat every time you go out. Like, women take pride in their hair and just in pride in your presence, and why shouldn't we just be able to walk down the street?
But then you're saying that as well, because you mentioned rights and everything.
Yeah.
But then I remember seeing a story not too long ago about there potentially being a curfew on men, that men shouldn't be allowed out after 6 p.m.
Yeah.
That was I think that was a proposal from
to protect women.
Yeah, to protect women. Now that is then going to be infringing on men's rights.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. When I saw that, I personally didn't agree with it, because it's whether you keep him in at 6 or not, like, it's still gonna happen. Like, it's not always in the middle of the night that it happens as well. Like, it can happen during the day. But again, it's taking away from basic human rights of the other part. Do you know what I mean? And like, if it was a man that got found or kidnapped or disappeared or found dead on the road, like, it's the same thing. Like, we should react the same way in anger and in emotion, because why should someone have to wake up, go about their day to day, and then that's it, their life ends that day just because of another person's decision? I mean, even when you're sort of going back to someone's state of mind before they're doing this, look at the guy who decided to kill 8 Asian women in America because he was having a bad day, according to the police. And it's like, so when I have a bad day, I'll be moody. I'll stay in bed, I'll eat ice cream, I'll go for a walk. But this guy thought, nah, these Asian women, I just want to go and shoot them dead. And the police were so comfortable in saying that, he was just having a bad day. That is out of order.
So I think we need to sort of be, in our own communities, be having these conversations a bit more, be having meet-up sessions, just for a lot more, just and mainly just for the whole purpose of teaching younger generations as to how to be, of how we should be, how we should be acting, how to deal with our issues, because a lot of these things even happen because one person's got an issue, so he or she feels the need to go and go and to either take another person's life or go and do some sort of act which defies one's defies one's what's the word?
Human rights.
Rights, rights, whatever, So I think we need to have these discussions within our own communities, within our own households. To parents, if you're watching this, please talk to your children,
to the youth.
help them because we all need the help, and it's only through conversation can we actually get a better outcome. Yes, a lot of people will say that, yes, but we've been speaking for a long time, there needs to be action. There needs to be action. Fair enough. Yes, there does need to be action, but we also need to think strategically as to how to do this, because there is a way to how to do certain things. The same way a lot of stereotypes were put onto women in general. A lot of these stereotypes and stuff like that, they were strategically put. So we also need to, now, if we want a better outcome, we need to think everything through the strategy. So I mean, that's what I personally think. People may disagree, but okay.
I totally agree. And I think also there's something that we haven't really touched upon, which is why you are so spot on. when you say that we need a part 2 is when it comes to black households, and just the depth in which this isn't even a conversation, but it needs to be said.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because it feels comfortable to be able to talk about this, and bring to light some of these issues which are talked about but not in depth, and really go into it and see, you know, how we as a generation can continue this conversation even more and start to bring about solutions, which is what we should be doing for a safer and better world. On that note, we've come to a conclusion of today's part of this conversation. If you enjoyed this video and this conversation today, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, leave some comments. What are your thoughts on this topic? Let us know. Let's have a discussion in the comment section down below, and also connect with us on Instagram. We are on Instagram, Breaking the Silence UK, so do connect with us on there and give us a follow. But we are so grateful for those who have watched up until now, and look out for our next video, which will be next Wednesday at 8 p.m, where we'll be uploading, and we can't wait to see you then.